Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, everyone. This is Kevin Leon from New York City Emergency Management. Just wanted to say that thank you for coming, and we will get started in about 13 to 15 minutes. Just stay with us, and we'll start shortly. Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining. Thank you for coming to the Hurricane Preparedness webinar. It is 10:55 right now, so we'll be starting in about, I will say 7 to 8 minutes. So please hold on and we'll start shortly. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Hey, Ed, morning.
Good morning, Matt.
Hey, morning.
Is Kevin on also?
Yes, he's on. He was on before. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Matt?
Yep, what's up?
I'm just going to step away for one moment and I'll be right back, okay?
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Or sorry again, good morning, everyone. This is Kevin Leon from New York City Emergency Management. And today is our Ready Up August Hurricane Preparedness webinar. Thank you again for joining. We'll give a couple more minutes for the stragglers that are coming in, and then we'll begin shortly. But while we're here, I just want to see if I can get an audio check from Ed and Matt, who are going to be our presenters today.
Hey, Kevin. Kevin, can you hear me? Kevin, can you hear me?
Hey, Ed. Hey, Matt. Are you guys here? I see you guys are joined.
Kevin, can you hear me? I'm here. Kevin, can you hear me?
Awesome. Great. Sorry, I think something's on my computer. I will fix it while we let people in. That way I can hear people.
Okay, Matt, I'm back.
Hey, sorry about that. That was my fault. I accidentally muted everyone on my computer. So I hear both of you now.
Okay,
Okay.
good. I was worried there for a second.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird, but yeah, that's completely my fault.
Okay, no problem.
Awesome. I hear everyone now. Yeah, we'll give everyone a couple more minutes to come in. I see a lot more people coming in. So we'll start in about 3 minutes at 11:05. Thank you again so much. Hey, good morning, everyone. It's 11:05. I see a lot of people have joined. I've also seen a lot of people have confirmed that they are here, and thank you everyone for joining. And yeah, we will begin with our Ready Up August Hurricane Preparedness webinar. It is hurricane season, everyone, so please get ready to be prepared for that. And yeah, Ed, Matt, you guys have the floor.
Well, thank you so much. I think we should probably begin with introductions. My name is Ed Powell. Um, I am an individual preparedness coordinator at New York City Emergency Management. My colleague is Matt Pavogel. Matt, if you'll introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone today. Thank you for joining. My name is Matthew Pavogel. I work at New York City Emergency Management as an individual preparedness specialist. I deal primarily with people with disabilities, access, and functional needs, but it's important for all populations, all individuals to prepare for emergencies.
Well, welcome everybody, and today we're going to be sharing some pretty important and useful information about emergency preparedness. And I strongly encourage you to take notes, and if you have questions, you can put that in the chat, and we'll address them at some point near the end of the presentation. I should mention that much of the information that we'll be sharing today can be found in one of our publications. It's probably our most popular one. It's called Ready New York, My Emergency Plan. And you can download this booklet or request hard copy versions to be mailed to you free of charge by visiting a website at nyc.gov/ready, READYNY. And at some point, we'll get that in the chat also. By visiting that website, you can also request one of our presentations for your organization or your school or your house of worship. And you can also request one of our other many publications in 13 different languages, you know, in download form or hard copy, as well as the many videos that we produce on the subject of emergency preparedness. Now, just a bit about our agency, who we are and what we do. New York City Emergency Management helps New Yorkers before, during, and after emergencies. And we do that through preparedness, education, and response. The city is responsible for preparing, the agency, pardon me, is responsible for preparing the city of New York and coordinating emergency planning and response for all types and all scales of emergencies. We make certain that other responding agencies and partners are communicating with each other so as to provide the very best possible response. We collect and disseminate preparedness information, and we educate New Yorkers about how to prepare themselves and their families and even their pets for all kinds of emergencies. We're staffed by more than 200 dedicated professionals with diverse backgrounds and diverse areas of expertise, even including individuals who are assigned to us from other city agencies. Now, let's talk about our community engagement. One of the biggest tasks is educating New Yorkers about preparing for all types of disasters, and that includes hurricanes. Our Ready New York program, our Ready New York preparedness campaign educates New Yorkers about hazards and encourages residents to prepare for emergencies. Our CERT program, or Community Emergency Response Team, it's like more than 1,200 members trained in basic response skills, including fire safety, light search and rescue, disaster medical operations, as well as traffic control. Our CERT teams support their local communities by assisting with emergency education and response. Then there is the Community Preparedness Program, which brings together local community leaders to promote grassroots emergency preparedness and volunteerism. And there's our Partners in Preparedness Program, which helps organizations prepare their employees, services and facilities for disasters. Now, for our personal emergency preparedness, there are just 3 basic steps to preparing for emergencies, all kinds of emergencies. Step number 1 is to make a plan. Have your plan in place before that emergency happens. That's so important. Know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, what you're going to need, who else needs to be involved, as well as, everything about planning. Have that plan in place before that emergency happens. The booklet that I talked about, My Emergency Plan, helps you to do that. You can fill in information in that booklet, and that creates your own personalized, individualized plan. Step number 2 to planning for emergencies is to gather supplies. Get those supplies on hand that are going to help sustain you through that emergency, whether you have to evacuate from your home or if you're remaining inside. Have those supplies on hand. Step number 3 is to get and stay informed. Continue to monitor your weather reports. Check the news on your TV, on the radio. Find out online what's going on. Just stay up to date on everything about anything that has to do with emergencies that might be happening. Again, you can get much more information and create your own emergency plan by downloading that booklet that I talked about, My Emergency Plan. I can't talk enough about this because this is really key to having your plan in place. Hurricanes in New York City. Hurricane season in New York City is from June 1st to November 30th. An average season produces 12 named storms, of which 6 could become hurricanes, including 3 major hurricanes. The Atlantic hurricane season, again, begins June 1st and continues through November 30th. Historically, the greatest potential for hurricanes in New York City occurs from August through October. As we have seen before, it only takes 1 storm, so now is the time to prepare. A storm surge, and if in case you don't know what the storm surge is, I'll explain that in just a moment, but that storm surge causes the largest number of hurricane fatalities. The storm surge is a dome of water from the ocean that is pushed toward the shore by wind force around the hurricane. This advancing surge combines with the normal tides and can increase the water level by 30 feet or more. Storm surge combined with waves can cause extensive damage and flooding. Now, Matt's going to talk with us about the impact of hurricanes caused by many things: wind, rain, flooding, utility disruptions. So, Matt, take it away.
So as I mentioned, only one storm can, affect the city in major ways. And with hurricanes and coastal storms, like I'd mentioned, the key areas, wind, rain, flooding, those are the key things that can occur as far as impacts during hurricane or coastal storm. So for wind, sustained hurricane winds of 74 miles an hour or greater can cause damage to buildings, trees to topple, and also cause loose objects to become deadly projectiles. Power lines can also be affected by heavy winds, and you may experience a power outage. So for an example of winds with New York City, Hurricane Isaias, which recently occurred, that winds from that storm caused many power outages throughout the city and caused much damage. So that is one way, an example that wind, because of a hurricane, can produce a major amount of damage. In addition, rain can be another impact. With rain, usually from coastal storms such as tropical storms and hurricanes, the production of rain can be from 6 to 12 inches or more of rain, and heavy rain can cause flash flooding. Also, lower lying areas or areas of poor drainage are especially vulnerable to flooding. In addition, flooding, heavy flash flooding can cause rapid rising of waters. So it's important not to travel through flooded water. And also, if you're driving a vehicle and you encounter flooded roadway, it's important not to drive through that. And it is also important to find another route in case that does occur. So these are some of the impacts again. And like Ed mentioned, there are utility disruptions, rain, flood, and wind. Those are the main impacts that we see from coastal storms and hurricanes. So how do I prepare for a hurricane or coastal storm? There are many things that you can do to prepare. And the first thing you want to do is check weather reports to see when the actual storm is going to affect your area. That's the first thing you want to do. You also want to determine if you live in a hurricane evacuation zone, which we'll talk about later. In addition, if you live in a home, it's important to protect your home. So if you live either in a home or an apartment, there are certain steps you want to take to prepare. And those include taking in any loose objects, such as lawn furniture or garbage cans. Also anchoring down objects that you cannot bring in your household, such as a barbecue grill or propane tank. Also, you want to move any expensive or items that are value to a higher level, because basements do flood. They are especially vulnerable to flooding. And in addition to that, if you have a vehicle and you live in a hurricane evacuation zone, you should move your vehicle to higher ground. So these are some of the things you can do to protect your home or apartment. In addition, if you live in a high-rise building, 10 stories or higher, it's important to not stay near glass because it does shatter or break. So that is the main reason why you want to stay away from windows. Also, you should be aware of your building's evacuation plan in case if you do need to evacuate. For those who rely on elevators, you want to evacuate as quickly as possible. And that the reason being is that elevators may be out of service or not running at all times. For people with disabilities, access, or functional needs, it's important to know what your plan is and plan for your needs, especially if you're trying to evacuate, if you're trying to use elevators, if you're trying to communicate with first responders or shelter in place. These areas may be affected because of your disability or access and functional need. So it's important to take these things into account and plan for them. Also, if you have difficulty with evacuating prior to a coastal storm, you want to think of how am I going to evacuate? So what you can do is contact 311 for additional transportation assistance. When you call 311, you'll be asked specific questions, and from what you tell the representative, you'll either be routed to an accessible evacuation center or to a hospital, depending on your medical needs. If you depend on power and life-sustaining equipment, you want to make a plan to evacuate because following a hurricane, you may lose power. Also, if you use life-sustaining equipment, you want to ask your utility company if your life-sustaining equipment qualifies you to be a life-sustaining equipment customer. Other things you want to consider if you have a disability or access and functional need would be taking into account transportation needs, medical needs, and dietary needs. So if you need to take additional time to evacuate or additional time to find transportation, you want to have that in your plan. If you have certain dietary needs, if you're diabetic or you have high cholesterol or hypertension, you want to think, what am I going to include for my dietary needs? And finally, medical needs, you want to include if you use oxygen, if you're using glasses, batteries, or any other equipment that you're going to need to take when you have to evacuate. These are things you want to include in your plan because they are extremely important. So for the next thing you want to do is know your zone. So knowing your zone, the city is broken into 6 evacuation zones, 1 through 6, and there's approximately 3 million residents that live in these areas. The zones, hurricane evacuation zones, are divided into 1 to 6 based on the storm surge. And for individuals that may need to evacuate, might be because of the hurricane track or forecast of the storm. In this event, if you have to evacuate, New York City Emergency Management recommends traveling to your support network or those who can assist you first. And then if that is not the case, then the evacuation centers and shelters would be your secondary option. But if you have to travel to your support network or those who are assisting you, you want to see if you can socially distance appropriately. Also, you want to see if make sure that people are not sick or recovering from COVID. These are things to think about when you might be evacuating. If that's not an option, then you'd evacuate to one of the accessible evacuation centers throughout the city. Specifically, what you can do again is call 311 or go to our website, nyc.gov/knowyourzone. For those who are deaf or hard of hearing, you can call 311, which is 212-639-9675 for video relay service, or you can call 212-504-4115 for TTY. So you want to know what evacuation zone you live in and also the closest evacuation center that is nearest to you. You want to understand the center that is most appropriate to you based on your needs. So throughout the city, there are 60 evacuation centers outside of hurricane evacuation zones if you should require to evacuate because of a coastal storm or hurricane. These evacuation centers and shelters are accessible to all individuals. So if someone has a disability or access and functional need, if they're an older adult, or individuals that are undocumented, all individuals are allowed to enter the evacuation centers or shelters. Accommodations that we do offer at the shelters include orientation for blind and low vision. So we have information about certain locations in the shelter that are provided, so that is in audio format or in Braille, that's the orientation. We also have video remote interpretation. This is providing American Sign Language through a tablet or an iPad or a tablet. In addition, we have a stockpile of medical equipment. This includes wheelchairs, walkers, canes, and crutches, and also refrigerators for medication. In addition, we have signage that provides locations as far as where the accessible entrances are, accessible restrooms, where the cafeteria is, where the pet-friendly room is, and also quiet room. So these are other locations that are found in the shelter, and there is a signage that is accessible in multilingual and also in Braille. There's also other signage that speaks about that we provide priority to those who need to charge their durable medical equipment, such as electric wheelchairs or communication devices. And then finally, like I mentioned, we have a quiet room for those who have developmental disabilities or those who are just stressed because of the emergency. They can stay at that location. And also there's a pet-friendly room where pets can stay because our shelters do allow pets and service animals. And that's what we allow and provide within the shelters. So we know that for COVID, our shelters are going to look a little bit differently this year, such as last year too. So things that are going to be included in the shelters would include social distancing, face coverings, and also cleaning. So for social distancing, our shelters are going to operate a lower capacity, and also there'll be cots 6 feet apart from one another. Also, in addition to that too, there'll be signage and markings throughout the shelter promoting social distancing. In addition to that, there will be an isolation center if people are in the shelter and they do start to have symptoms. And also when people come to the shelters, they'll be screened and there'll be a triage in case if people do come to the shelter and they're showing symptoms, they then can be transferred to another location. As far as face coverings, go back to social distancing a little bit. Our cafeterias, that will be provided shelter space. So for those who come to the shelters, if they are going to be fed, there's a grab and go style where food will be provided in packaged style, and they will then be able to bring their food back to cots to be able to eat. For face coverings are going to be required for all individuals to wear when they're in the shelter. If an individual comes to the location and they do not have a face covering, we will provide them. In addition, we encourage all New Yorkers to have hand sanitizer and face coverings, but again, we'll provide them if needed. And for those who are sleeping at their cots, their face covering will not be required because they will be social distancing and also sleeping head to toe. For cleaning of the shelters, what we will have is custodians. Department of Education custodians will follow the cleaning that is required by the Department of Health. So these are additional items that we are going to have within the shelter for this season. These are things that we want to keep all New Yorkers safe, and people that want to feel like they need to come to a shelter, they are going to be able to do that. So the next slide, which Ed's going to talk about, is how you're going to put your plan together and making a plan.
Thank you so much, Matt. As you might remember, early on, I talked about the 3 basic steps to preparing for emergencies, and that first step was making a plan. Now, part of everyone's plan should be creating an emergency support network of people who are going to keep in touch with each other during emergencies. Sometimes getting a phone call from a familiar, hearing a familiar voice or a text message can make all the difference. People, especially who live alone or older adults and so forth, an emergency situation where you're all alone can be absolutely terrifying. Do not go through an emergency alone. Ask at least 2 people to be in your emergency support network. It could be family members or friends or neighbors, caregivers, co-workers, or members from your community group or your house of worship. Remember, you can help and provide comfort to each other during emergencies. Your network should, again, include people who are going to stay in contact with each other during emergencies. If you have emergency supplies in your home, and you should, individuals who are in your support network should be informed about where those emergency supplies can be found in your home. And if you use any kind of medical equipment, they should be educated about, your people in your network should be educated about how to operate that medical equipment or help to move you to safety in an emergency. Now, the booklet that I spoke about earlier, My Emergency Plan, again, provides a place where you can jot down personalized information and make your plan personal to you. It's your own individualized plan. For example, when you're jotting down the names and contact information for individuals who are in your support network, there's a place to fill in that information, the name, relationship, phone number, email address. Fill in that information right there in the booklet, including you should have at least one person who is out of the area, is out of town. You pick an out of area friend or relative to be in your support network who family or friends can call on during a disaster. If local phone lines are busy, long distance calls might be easier to make, particularly in emergencies like power failures. We all witnessed, or most of us witnessed, um, phone calls being difficult to make and having to wait a long time and being, negatively, adversely affected by, communication systems. So you should include at least one person in your support network who lives in a different area. This out of area contact can help you communicate with those in your network. You called Uncle George who lives in Chicago, and Uncle George, you agreed to be part of our network. And I can't reach anybody in the family here in New York, but I can reach you, you can reach us. So I need you to be a kind of conduit for all of us to kind of remain in touch with each other. So that's why that out of town contact is so very important. And again, the booklet provides a place for you to jot down that information. It also provides a place for you to write down your important health and life-saving information, like the names of the medications that you take and why you take those medications and what the daily dosages are. What are you allergic to? All of your allergies or your blood type, your health insurance plan, the hospital that you prefer to go to in the event that you're unable to communicate that to an emergency responder, your doctor's contact information, your pharmacist's contact information. And here's what we suggest. You fill in this information in the booklet, then you make a photocopy of your health and medical information, as well as the page containing your emergency support network contacts, and you keep those copies with you all the time. You keep those photocopies with you all the time. Why? Well, something could happen to you. God forbid, you might end up unconscious or something. Something could happen. You could just step off the curb, twist your ankle, fall down, hit your head, and be unconscious. And when emergency responders come, when the ambulance shows up, they need to be able to get certain information quickly, like your blood type, for example. So in emergencies, lives are lost or saved sometimes within seconds. So time is of the essence. Uh, um, so again, important to fill in that information in your booklet and make a photocopy, keep it with you all the time. Communication should be also a big part of your plan. So you take time now to plan how you're going to talk with friends or emergency workers in an emergency. Because during emergencies, your normal way of communicating might be affected by changes in the environment or by noise or service disruptions or confusion. So your emergency plan should include different ways that you can communicate with others. For example, someone who's deaf or hard of hearing, that person should practice alternate ways to communicate their needs, like through hand gestures, for example, or note cards or text messages. For someone who's blind or has low vision, that person should be prepared to explain to others how best to guide them. Little note cards, index cards can be very, very helpful. someone who might not speak the language, they don't speak English. Um, Jot down on that card for them, I don't speak English, I speak whatever the language is, Italian. Uh, and if you also speak Italian, fill in your name and phone number on that card. Because in an emergency, when that person is trying to communicate with someone, like emergency responder, uh, a lot of time can go by with them trying to communicate with each other. If they have that card, they can pass it to the person they're trying to communicate with. And right away, that person sees what language they speak and can get somebody there to help to translate, or they can call you and you can help translate. So again, communication, big part of your plan. To move on, the second step to preparing for emergencies is gathering supplies. You pack a go bag, and for people who don't know what a go bag is, a go bag can be a backpack or a small suitcase on wheels in which you store emergency supplies and keep that there for a time when you might have to evacuate from your home for any reason, whether it's a flood or a fire or any emergency. Um, your go bag should contain materials like small bottles of water, food in the form of something that's lightweight but nutrition, like nuts and granola bar, energy bars. It should contain some of your medicine in a Ziploc plastic bag, not all of your medicine, but some of it. It should contain also some cash in the form of bills, 20s and under, nothing over 20. It should contain your important identification, like your driver's license and your important papers, and things like your passport, any kind of lease and so forth. You'll make copies, not the original, but copies. You place that also into a plastic Ziploc bag, a good flashlight with extra batteries, a whistle in the event that you might need to attract attention to yourself at any point, first aid kit, and don't forget, COVID hasn't gone anywhere really. So face coverings, hand sanitizer, gloves, small portable radio, hygiene, personal hygiene, items like toothbrush, toothpaste, washcloths, soap, and anything else that you think you might want to have in your go bag. But remember, you might have to carry this, so don't make it so heavy, but personalize it. Put anything in your go bag that you think you might want to have in an emergency. And now in some emergencies like winter storms and heat waves, you might have to stay home. An emergency supply kit is what you're going to need. I like to call it a stay-at-home kit. And this is items that many of them are the same thing as you would have in your go bag to evacuate with, but you're going to stay home. And you might want to include those items, but in larger quantity, like your food. The granola bars are great for when you have to evacuate, but for storing food in your home for emergencies, you might want to put things like non-perishables, large bags of beans, of rice, canned goods, water. And again, water, how much water? Well, there's a formula for the amount of water you should store in your home. And that formula is 1 gallon per person per day. I suggest and we recommend up to 7 days of supplies. So if you want to have store 7 days supply of water, the formula 1 gallon per person per day. If that's one person who lives alone, that's going to be 7 gallons of water. And you can multiply that by the number of individuals in your household. Now, there are special considerations, and Matt has really explained all of that. Consider adding items to your emergency supplies that best suit your needs, including your dietary and medical needs. Electric medical equipment, that you should contact your supply company for information about a backup source of power, and so forth. Matt has gone over. So we can move on then to step number 3, preparing for emergencies, which is getting and staying informed. So if we can move on to that slide, I think Matt is going to be able to explain that.
Yep. So thanks, Ed. So yeah, of course, my emergency plan, like I just mentioned, is broken into 3 sections, and we've covered making a plan, gathering supplies, then final section is staying or being informed. And the key programs that the city has, which I talked about it earlier, is Know Your Zone, which is our campaign to inform New Yorkers of the zones that they live in, hurricane evacuation zones. Individuals can find out what evacuation zone they live in by actually typing in their address on our website, which is nyc.gov/know your zone, or by calling 311. They can tell the representative what zone did they live in, and can be told that. So they can find that out, and also the closest evacuation center and the accommodations that they provide. So this campaign is a great campaign for all New Yorkers to know what zone that they live in. For this coastal storm season, the zones 1 through 6 have been revised. So zones 1 through 6 have been updated to incorporate new data, and specifically it provides also information that is from actual events. And this is for the areas that are most vulnerable to flooding due to storm surge from a hurricane. So this program, the Know Your Zone program, has that information within it, so you can find that out. And again, you should go to our website, nyc.gov/know your zone, or call 311. In addition to this campaign, there is Notify NYC. That's our main alert program throughout the city. So it is a free program you can sign up for, where you will receive messages either through your smartphone or cell phone, text messages, either an email or a voicemail, where a message will be sent to your phone. So you can sign up for up to 5 zip codes, and alerts that are small to large will be provided. And for larger emergencies like coastal storm or hurricane, some tips will be provided within that message as far as how to prepare for a hurricane or coastal storm. And the messages, again, are free of charge, and you can receive messages as much as you want. You can opt in for certain messages and opt out. And the messages are also provided in multilingual and also available for those who are deaf and hard of hearing. The messages are provided in ASL and are also accessible for people who are blind and low vision. The messages are also provided in plain language for those who have a developmental disability. There's also the Ready NYC app. Notify NYC we have a free app that you can actually sign up for too, which allows you to receive messages, and the app will actually track your location if there is an emergency in your location. So this is a free app. Notify NYC is a free app they provide through Apple and Android. And in addition to that, we have the Ready NYC app that is, again, also provided free of charge through Apple and Android. The Ready NYC app, very similar to what we've talked about today, the My Emergency Plan. This app will allow you to write out your contacts, your meeting places. There's also a checklist in this app. You can check what items you have in a go bag and what you do not, to see what items you might need to add in addition. And also it's important to check your go bag at least twice a year. So this app can help with that, to see what you have and what you may not have in a go bag. And also some additional information in there talks about life-sustaining equipment. So again, if you are not sure if you qualify to be a part of that program, we encourage you to call your utility company, Con Edison or PSEG, to find out if you can sign up for that program. So again, Notify NYC and Ready NYC, those are the two free applications that we have for Android and Apple. And I encourage all New Yorkers to sign up for those programs. There's also the events warning system. This is for organizations. And again, this is for organizations that can send messages out to their clients. So all individuals are prepared and safe in case of a hurricane or coastal storm. For more information, again, our website, I just mentioned this a couple of times, but I'll mention it again, is nyc.gov/readyny. On this website, you can find our brochures like the My Emergency Plan, the Pets Guide, many other brochures that we have in up to 13 different languages and also in audio format. Those are the Ready New York guides that we have. Also on that website, there are videos about preparedness for hurricanes and other emergencies. There is audio description provided for blind, low vision, and also American Sign Language for those who are deaf and hard of hearing. So back to you, Ed.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So at this point, we're going to take any questions that you might have, and I am looking at the chat, and I do see one, which is there any way to download the My Emergency Plan book? And as Matt just mentioned in the earlier slide, there is a way. It is the Ready New York app. So in order to do that, you can just again go to nyc.gov/readyny. Kevin, do we have any other questions to address here?
Yes, thanks so much, Ed. So yes, there were some questions I'm asking for the actual slides as well as a recording of the presentation. There will be a recording that will be posted on our social media page that we will send out to everyone. Give us a couple of days to get that uploaded, and you will receive an email as always with a PDF file of our presentation. There is also a prediction. There's also something on what is the hurricane prediction for New York City for 2021. The prediction for New York City for 2021 or for the Atlantic hurricane season is an above average hurricane season. So I don't know off the top of my head, but I believe that it's about 3 to 5 major storms and somewhere between in the teens of named storms. I think it was 15 to 20 or something along those lines. I will get that information to you in a couple minutes, but yes, off the top of my head, it's an above average season for Atlantic hurricane season.
Okay. I should mention that if you have any questions that that might come to you after the presentation, just send them to our website at readyny.nyc.gov, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Great, and just to give you a more concrete information on the hurricane season, so the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration this year has forecasted about 13 to 20 named storms, of which 6 to 10 could become hurricanes, including 3 to 5 major hurricanes. Now, are these all going to affect New York City? Most likely not. But again, it only takes one storm to really put us into a really, really hard spot. So please be prepared and know what to do when an emergency does come your way. So there was a question is if you go to a shelter, should you bring toilet paper? No, you don't have to. Toilet paper is provided at the shelters in all the bathrooms. Now, if you have a specific brand of toilet paper that only you would use, then I would suggest you bring it. But toilet paper is provided. And there's another question where, what do you do if you're stuck in the subway during a hurricane or during a coastal storm? Fortunately, we at New York City work with the MTA to shut down the subways or halt services when a storm does hit New York City, if it's large enough, and it will affect the tunnel. So please be aware of that. Evacuation centers are open a few days prior to a hurricane hitting New York City. So also make sure to plan your evacuation routes safely and effectively.
Also, Kevin, to add on to that too, in the My Emergency Plan, there is a section that you can actually write out your transportation, and in addition, what your backup plans would be. For people with disabilities, there is the homebound evacuation operation, which is a last resort program, like I mentioned, which is additional transportation assistance, where you can call 311. So again, for transportation, like Kevin mentioned, subways do shut down prior to a coastal storm. So it's important to have the backup plan and knowing what you're going to do next.
And there's a question, great presentation. I'm wondering how you convince someone to be prepared, put together a go bag and so forth, who says that it will never happen to me. Well, my suggestion would be to give them a challenge, give them our email address, and ask them to drop us an email and find out when the next presentation would be available that they could attend. And maybe by attending one of these presentations, it might just convince them that this is important.
Thank you so much, Ed. And yeah, there has been some comments made that storms will happen later or earlier. Again, please stay informed. All of these predictions are still just predictions. Storms can happen. Hurricane Sandy happened later in the year, and Hurricane Isaias happened just about a year ago. So storms can happen whenever during the hurricane season. So please stay informed, check your weather reports, and keep listening to the news so we can update you and inform you of what is coming. And also sign up for Notify NYC.
Okay, well, let's, I'd just like to thank you, and we'd all like to thank everyone who has signed on today. And we sincerely hope that, you've gotten at least something from this presentation that will help you to at least start thinking about getting prepared for emergencies before it happens. That's so key. Do it. Don't wait until you're in the middle of an emergency and start thinking about what am I going to do. Have your plan in place. Prepare yourself before this happens. Thank you so much on behalf of Kevin, Matt, and myself, and all of the Ready New York program of New York City Emergency Management. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening.